Hey everyone, this is Paul Gale from paulgalenetwork.com, and thank you for joining me today for video game news. It is April 15th, 2021, and these are the top stories of the day. To kick things off, we've got a big rumor, and that is that potential buyers are showing interest in buying Square-Enix. That's huge. Squaresoft and Enix, then merged into Square-Enix, have been around for a long time in the video game industry. They hold quite a few IP under their belts and are definitely one of the top developers coming out of Japan today. And for many years have, like I said, built up a solid reputation from the likes of Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, just to name a couple of the biggest ones. And if they were to be acquired, it would be really interesting and a really powerful move, depending on who would make that purchase. You got to think of the big three, right? Nintendo, Sony, or Microsoft. Of course, you can't rule out someone else like EA or Activision, Ubisoft. I don't see EA, Activision, or Ubisoft being one of the three companies that could potentially buy Square Enix. But anything's possible. It could just be a non-video game company that's interested in getting into the market that wants Square Enix. But then you also have to look at the first three that I mentioned. Nintendo. Nintendo has a long relationship with Square Enix. Are they interested in acquiring such a big studio, adding to their portfolio, having Final Fantasy games and whatnot be exclusive to Nintendo platforms? To be on the safe side, I would say I don't think so. That would be quite a powerful move from Big N, though. There's a lot of people out there who have played their first Final Fantasy game on a Nintendo console, NES titles back in the day, SNES titles, and so forth. And Dragon Quest has certainly had its popularity potentially boom during the DS era, and it's been on multiple platforms, Nintendo, non-Nintendo, but a lot of people associate those franchises with Nintendo, and like I said, Square Enix and Nintendo having a good relationship. I could see that as a possibility. Microsoft wanting to continue to add to their resume of studios that work for them, already having done so with Bethesda. That was a powerful play move. Could they do it with Square Enix? Yeah, it would help them out in Japan, certainly, because especially as Sony seems to be less interested in the Japanese market with the distribution of the PlayStation 5 and just not really developing games that cater to the Japanese user base, to take a little bit more thunder away from them. If Microsoft was the console to go to, Xbox Series brand of platforms and so forth, the only place that you could go to play Saga Frontier, play Final Fantasy, Outriders, Dragon Quest, that would be a pretty big move, but I don't know how likely that is, because if you're Square Enix, you probably want money if you are allowing yourselves to be acquired, but you probably also want to have the most guaranteed success of your legacy content, At least I would think that, I would hope that, and they probably know it'd be a massively uphill battle if Microsoft was the owner, and how would their beloved franchises that they're proud of fare in that market? The rest of the world would just eat up Final Fantasy games, Dragon Quest games, no problem in North America and Europe. But, if they want the best for their titles long run, I would say Microsoft probably not the most likely. And then comes to Sony. Sony and Square Enix have a really good relationship. If it was Nintendo that really began these franchises, it was Sony that really brought them to a mainstream popularity with the likes of Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, those late 90s era games, and even going into the PlayStation 2 era in the early 2000s with, Final Fantasy 10 and going into 11 and 12. There's a lot of association with the PlayStation brand there. A lot of that association came out of Japan, though, and like I said earlier, Sony in Japan, not so hot these days, and doesn't seem like it's going to be much better anytime soon. Of course, coming off the PS4, that was the lead platform last generation, and there are a lot of people already looking forward to Final Fantasy 16 and seeing it on the PS5. Final Fantasy 7 Remake obviously was exclusive to PS4 for at least the last year, and I imagine that sometime soon, wouldn't be surprised if this summer there's an official announcement that the game will be ported onto Xbox Series X or maybe the Nintendo Switch Plus. We'll see. But that would be a strong move on Sony's part, maybe just to permanently nab the Final Fantasy franchise. Just make it their own. Every new Dragon Quest, only their own. That would be, pretty powerful of a play. Somebody to acquire of the big three, Square-Enix or Capcom or Konami, in my opinion, would really change the video game industry quite a bit. Or Sega. One of those four, I'd say. Capcom, Konami, Square-Enix, Sega. If Sony, Nintendo, or Microsoft purchased any of those four, that really makes that company's platform have something powerful, because there are a lot of franchises, there are a lot of big sellers that are established entries in the hearts and minds of many gamers around the world. So I don't know how I feel about anyone buying Square Enix of those three, because that's kind of a limited audience. It makes it a very powerful platform. It makes that company's clout certainly go up. Their value is considerably higher than it was before. So I don't know how I feel just yet. Like I said, though, it could just be an outside party. Somebody that's not an existing video game company, or a bigger third-party company that has a lot of dough that they're rolling in and just wants to add Square Enix to their brand. That's a possibility. Or this could all just be a bunch of baloney, and this potential buyer rumor isn't actually a thing. But sometimes, more often than not perhaps, where there's smoke, there's fire. So PGN will keep you updated on this rumor and if anything else comes to it. Next up, speaking of Capcom earlier, Resident Evil 4 VR was announced by Capcom today, and more news will come from it in just 6 more days, April 21st. The game is coming this year to VR. So if you have a Quest 2, you'll be able to check it out. This is the HD version of the game. It's not the supposed remake, the reimagining title that's in the works, but still, base Resident Evil 4 is a fantastic game ever since it came out on Nintendo GameCube back in the day. And of course, playing it in HD, just the resolution, the textures touched up, it's still a very good looking game. So if you love RE4 and you want to play it in VR, here you go. One more reason to get a Quest 2. Quest 2 is the Facebook associated VR platform, and with many people having Facebook already, chances are, if you're watching this, you have an account. Maybe you don't, though. Maybe this will make you have an account because you're like, yeah, now's my time to venture into VR. $300, let me go in, make a Facebook account, whatever. I know some people are very uncomfortable with the idea of Facebook. I myself have a profile. I don't mind being on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, any type of social media, really, but some people are against that, so understandable why, I guess. Although any console's ecosystem, you're always going to be connected to someone in some way and credit card in some way, right? But to each their own. More info when it comes out on this game, including reports on how it's faring with people's connections and overall happiness. Moving on. I touched on this yesterday, and I said my book would be coming in Thursday, and it actually came in Thursday. So here is my words of wisdom from Satoru Iwata, Nintendo's legendary CEO. Ask Iwata, edited by Hobonichi. I have read the preface of the book. I have yet to hop into chapter 1 officially, but so far so good. It's probably going to be a very soft read. Soft read, I mean, a read that I have a lot of emotion into it, because I really liked Mr. Iwata as a person. And, I had the pleasure of meeting him 3 or 4 times. Had a good 3 conversations with him for sure. I think it was 4. I've taken pictures with him, 2, if I'm not mistaken. 2 or 3. I think that third one that I'm thinking of, I remember that he was a little busy and couldn't take the photo at the moment. But that was okay. The conversation was well worthwhile at that E3. And, then, unfortunately he passed away, and that one hit me hard. This is somebody who I really looked up to, admired. I loved who he was online through Nintendo Directs, and from my times with him in person. For sure, those 3 occasions, I loved our conversations, and I valued his time and appreciated who he was. So that's someone who I missed when he passed, and have missed him deeply. And time goes on, and you move on after someone's passing. But still, I think of Mr. Iwata and how proud he must have been of where Nintendo was heading, and how proud he must be today of where Nintendo is at. And this is coming from someone who's seen him for the majority part, like everybody else on the internet, watching online, and just having a connection with him in person 3 or 4 times at most. So that's the kind of impact he left on me in that positive manner. So from everybody else who was really close to him, friends, co-workers, business partners, family members, employees, I only hear positive things about him, that he was loved by many. So this will probably be a really nice read to have, this translation of, great stories of his, more into who he was as a person. And I'm really looking forward to this. So I'm feeling I'm going to love this book, and it'll probably be one of my favorites by the time I'm done with it. So I'll give you my impressions when I am finished. Moving on. Last but not least, Famitsu Sales. Once again, Chris1964 over at the ResetEra.com forums. Thank you for supplying this list. This data is for week 15 of 2021, representing April 5th through April 11th. I will read you the top 10 right now. At number 1, Monster Hunter Rise. No surprise there, with 194,327 copies sold. It's only down 30% from week 2, and that's actually a pretty good drop. Good as in not bad, that's not a large drop. That's pretty solid. Sometimes you see these games have a massive drop from week 1 to week 2, and then a really big drop yet again from week 2 to week 3. We did see a considerable drop from 1 to 2, but the drop from 2 to 3 is really pretty low. 30%, it's hanging in there. Of course, this just represents physical sales, but right now the game at 1.7 million physical in Japan is really close to 3 million in Japan alone. And like I said, probably somewhere around, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I said around April 25th would be my guess as to when Capcom would report Monster Hunter Rise has now sold 6 million units worldwide. Maybe they won't report the number of 6 million, but just in my mind, I figured, give it to April 25th. That'll probably be when the game sells 6 million worldwide. We'll see if Capcom does report it. And number 2, I won't make a long explanation for all of these, but Monster Hunter Rise, pretty special. It's pretty hot right now. Number 2, Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury at 21,590 copies sold. Number 3 is Momotaro Dentetsu with 12,920 copies. Number 4 is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe with 10,439 copies sold. At number 5, Ring Fit Adventure with 10,154. Number 6 is Minecraft on Nintendo Switch with 9,408 copies out there. Number 7 is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate with 7,835. Number 8 is Animal Crossing New Horizons, 7,406. Number 9 is Splatoon 2 with 4,783 copies sold. And number 10 is Pokemon Sword and Shield with 4,634 copies sold. Got tongue-tied there for a little bit. Overall, it's a solid top 10 with 10 titles being exclusive to Nintendo Switch. And, nothing groundbreaking aside from Monster Hunter Rise in terms of, game with particularly explosive sales. But overall, like I said, a solid list. You have small drops from the previous week, which is a healthy look for, the beginning of the next quarter. And you have Nintendo's evergreen titles really nailing this list. Titles like Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, not dropping. Splatoon 2, not being impacted negatively thanks to Splatoon 3 being announced. And overall, pretty cool. I'm rooting for Monster Hunter Rise to continue having these small drops because it's a really good game, and I hope it does Capcom, some big numbers. They deserve it. And coming in last to talk about today is the hardware report. Nintendo Switch for the week sold 96,259 units. PlayStation 5 with 15,560. PS4 at 1,430. 3DS at 622. And the Xbox Series at 571. Now, the Xbox Series actually went up and is the only console to do so from the previous week. Last week, not impressive, 159. This week, 571. Hey, I'm happier to see that. Good on them. Looks like the split was pretty even between Xbox Series X and S. The PlayStation 5 side of things is getting more continuously disappointing. We had that fluke week, 60,000. Wow, nice. Could Sony maintain this? Could they maintain this level of shipment? I didn't think so. Boom, of course. Didn't last long. 20,000 last week, down to 15,000 this week. I really wonder, when are we going to get a solid base? Because people want to buy it. It just continuously gets sold out, but the numbers that are being sold out aren't mind-blowing in the first place because not a lot of stock is going to Japan, which kind of goes back to the earlier statement of Sony's interest in Japan seems to be going away in time. But Nintendo Switch, we got to talk about that. Last week, which was week 2 of Monster Hunter Rise, they did a mind-blowing 135,000. I say mind-blowing because during this time of the year, typically, you don't see just awesome sales unless if it is a game that's come out like Animal Crossing or Monster Hunter World where it just spikes up all hardware. So 135 was great for the end of March. And this week, a very small drop, 96,000, not bad. You can see that this week's 96,000, it was far ahead of last year's this respective week with 25,000. And that battle between 2021 and 2020, 2021 is ahead. We're at 1.976 million. Last year was at 1.88 million. The lifetime to date in Japan alone for Nintendo Switch is 19,316,000 units sold. Give it a couple of more months. By the end of the first half of the year, when it's June 30th, July 1st, I'm pretty confident that Nintendo Switch will have hit the 20 million mark in Japan. And then it's, a matter of time before it comes in on this number, that, 24.5 million number, settled in by the 3DS. And then just, what's the limit? Pretty crazy. PS4 hanging in there, 3DS hanging in there. Obviously a lot lower than they were last year, especially on the PS4 side of things, but fun look. It will be interesting to see how things go. Golden Week is going to help out console sales. I think it's really going to help out Nintendo Switch, especially because we're also getting new Pokemon Snap at the end of the month. So it's going to be Monster Hunter Rise. It's going to be Golden Week, which will help out everyone, hopefully. And it'll be new Pokemon Snap. And overall, the 2021 library of games coming out on Nintendo's platform looks healthier than on Nintendo Switch last year. That's going to do it today for Video Game News. Let me know what you thought of the hardware and software sales data for the week. Are you interested in Resident Evil 4 VR? What do you think of the Ask Iwata book? Have you already read it? Some people read books really fast. I just got it today. I've only read the preface. But if you already have it and have read it, what do you think? If you don't have it, do you plan on reading it? And finally, what do you think about Square-Enix and the rumor around it being acquired by someone? Who would you want it to be purchased by? Or do you not want it to be purchased by anyone? I don't know how I feel about anyone in particular buying it, but it would be pretty powerful. And I buy all three consoles anyways, but if I didn't, I would make sure that I'm probably going to buy that system because I like Square's games, and to me, owning that console is probably more worth it to play Square's games exclusively if that were the case, you know? But like I said, I buy everything anyways, so either way, this personally won't affect me. All right, that's going to do it today for today's Video Game News with PGN. Thank you for watching. Hope you all have a good one. See you next time. Bye.